Has anybody heard from Commissioner Watson? Is he excused?
See how the thought today?
No, it's actually Commissioner. It's me.
You. No, that's funny. They're right there.
Well, welcome, everyone. Let's go ahead and get started for the Planning Commission meeting tonight. I'm just going to give a quick thought, and then Commissioner Webb will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance after. So I just wanted to let you guys know, as if you don't already, this will be my last meeting. I know, and it's been really an honor and a pleasure to work with each of you. And, I feel like we've made some great recommendations to the city. And this is 10 years for me. So I can say over the last 10 years, there's been a tremendous growth in the city. And I hope, I've made a positive impact in some small way. So the staff, I can't thank you guys enough. John, you and I have been doing this for 10 years, right? But you guys are fantastic, and you always prepare us so well and great, give us great guidance. And I feel like you always have our back, and that's really important to us. So I guess that's it. The only thing I want to say is it's also Johnson Webb's last meeting tonight, at least for a while. Maybe they'll see us again sometime in the future, but
Maybe we'll come with our report.
maybe we will. Maybe we will. We might be on the other side,
Yeah.
but maybe we might be back on this side again
Yeah.
sometime. But I just wanted to thank you for all your contributions and your always insightful comments, and you always bring a kind of a different perspective of caring about keeping the character of the city. And it's always timely and it's always important. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah. If you could lead us in the Pledge of
You bet.
Allegiance.
Everyone, please rise. Follow me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll be done.
Thanks. Thank you so much. Okay, looks like we've got everybody except Commissioner Watson. He might pop in a little bit late, but I guess we'll see if we see him tonight. Consideration and action to approve the December 17th, 2025 meeting minutes. Did everybody have a chance to take a look at those? Were there any changes or comments anybody want to make?
I'll make a motion to approve
that
those.
we approve them.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, we've got a motion to approve from Commissioner Gardner and a
I'll second.
second from Commissioner Neighbor. Any ex parte communications or conflicts of interest to disclose tonight?
Are we just
Oh, do you need to vote?
motion and we need to vote?
Good catch. Good catch.
Good catch. Thanks. I'm
On to the
moving
next
right
item.
along tonight.
Try to be efficient.
So-
Good catch.
So with the motion and the second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so that passes unanimously. Thank you, Commissioner Gardner. Any ex parte communications to disclose? All right, well, we've got 3 legislative items on the agenda tonight, and we do have some members of the public here tonight. So I'm going to go ahead and read the kind of the guidelines for public comments during meetings. Do we have anyone online, John?
Yes, we do. We have 3 folks online.
Okay, fantastic. So time is made available for anyone in the audience to address the commission concerning matters pertaining to city business. Citizens will be asked to limit their remarks or questions to 5 minutes each. Any materials that are displayed or referenced, such as pictures or written materials, are part of the record and must be left with the commission. Speakers are required to have signed in at the door and will state their name and the city they reside in before beginning their remarks. If you agree with the previous speaker, state your agreement to avoid repetitious remarks. Speakers shall address the commission from the podium or microphone and shall address all comments to the commission. So let's jump right into the first legislative item. This is a public hearing to consider regulations permitting limited food establishments within public uses and associated buildings located in residential, commercial, and civic zones. Because this item was noticed, but maybe is not quite ready to make a recommendation to the city council. The item will be renoticed and tabled until February 4th, but tonight we will go ahead and have a public hearing and collect public comments, which will be heard tonight at the meeting. So our presenter tonight is Mr. Hess.
Thank you, Chair. So this is one related specifically to the library. We had a business come in and apply for a food user license, and we noticed that we're in a residential zone, and food uses or food sales are not a permitted use in residential zones. So we issued a temporary business license with 90 days to bring this across the council desk and consider whether or not this is a good idea or not. Nobody had an issue with it. We're all excited about it. And the library was constructed with a cafe as part of it initially from the start. So we all expected this use to come out. The thing that we didn't do in the public notice is we missed a section of code that we think will be crucial in identifying and correcting that, and that's the definitions. So we, out of an abundance of caution, want to renotice that, have all of those sections listed, and then we'll bring back the zoning text amendment recommendation to the Planning Commission.
Okay, great.
So can I have a question on that maybe?
Absolutely.
So when you do that, because we do that at the university as well, is there a bidding process that goes on with that kind of a activity then?
Yeah, so in this case, whatever the agreement that was worked out between the food proprietor and the library is all on them. So I don't know what their process is, and the library operates fully independently from the city. And it's another public use in a public zone.
So that's Weber County Library System.
Yep,
That's why
correct.
they're separate there. then.
Yep.
So they would have that responsibility. Okay.
And
That's
this would take care of things like up at the 2750 North Trailhead, for instance, we left a concrete pad with an outlet there and an electrical outlet. So you could technically, I guess on an event day, there could be a vendor come out and sell food from there or from the park outside of just general events. And this type of zoning text amendment would permit them to do it under a regular business license if that was something the city wanted to issue.
Well, would that, where it's on city property, would they have to go through a procurement process to get that established? Okay. Okay.
I'd imagine so if we were going to have a long-term food user.
So.
And
Okay.
any contract that's more than a year has to go through the procurement process.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Hess?
I guess just because this says that we're gonna renotice and table it, but public comment will still be heard. In light of public comment, just in case public is interested, Scott, can you offer any insights into the word limited here as this is being considered across residential as well as these other two zones?
We likely wouldn't permit a drive-through. So we also wouldn't permit like a gas station. So it would be limited in the sense of maybe by size. And these are the things that we're considering. There are a bunch of different ways to do this, and we've looked at different communities. Some simply create a definition, and then that definition relates to all residential and civic zones. Some create an entire, section of code. So this seemingly easy one was a little more complicated once we really got into it. And that's why we want to give ourselves a little extra time, make sure the public is noticed correctly. But I think limited is one of those words that we will present something to you and figure out what that means.
Absolutely.
My guess is we were talking about internally a portion of square footage of a building, or that it's a secondary use to the primary use. So over here, it isn't like a cafe with a library. It's a library with a small food vendor within the library. So it's a portion of it. And maybe it's up to a certain square footage or percentage of the building, but those are all things that we need to, completely go through.
Okay, perfect. I think that gives the public a little more context. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That's a good question. At this time, I'd like to open a public hearing. At this time, if any members of the public that are present or online would like to comment on this item, now would be a good time to come forward. Anything over there, John? Okay,
I motion that we close the public hearing, seeing no comments.
I'll second that.
so we have a motion to close from Commissioner Green and a second from Commissioner Gardner. All in favor?
Neighbor.
I'm sorry,
Okay. It's your last meeting.
Commissioner Neighbor. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, any opposed? So let's move forward to the next item. This would be a public hearing as well. Consideration and recommendation on a legislative amendment to consider amending North Ogden Code 1126-8, secondary water system to consider unavailable infrastructure and deferral agreement requirements. And the presenter tonight is also Scott Hess.
Thank you. So this is something that will be coming to Planning Commission this year for consideration. Is the availability of secondary water on the hill is a little bit, it's concerning right now. There's several developments that are underway where there are concerns about whether or not they will have water. But we did have this section 1126-8 of our code says that an applicant is required to provide secondary water as a condition of approval. We know that through the subdivision. But it states that if secondary water is unavailable, a deferral agreement shall be entered into for future connections and culinary water used for landscape irrigation. And two things is that the word shall is a legally defined term in the state of Utah, and the term available or unavailable is another legally referenceable term to mean physically unable to bring the infrastructure to that. And so in a certain case, the secondary water line physically touches a property. The property is connected to that secondary water line, but they can't get the water provider to turn the tap on because they aren't able to get shares of water to the company, essentially. So it's come down to this question of, does that mean water is unavailable because they are unable to get the shares, or does unavailable mean physically impossible to get the water to that place? And there are certain areas of our city, especially on the northeast side of the community, that would be likely physically unable to connect secondary water to at this point without massive offsite improvements. So this kind of takes care of those as well. And then the word shall be in a deferral agreement shall be entered into for future connections. You'd have to enter into a deferral agreement, but nothing about this code says what that deferral agreement would say. There's no context around it. So as John and I went back and forth, and I love to play like armchair legal counsel, and so we talk about it. This code could require a developer to enter into a deferral agreement whereby the council says, you cannot ever do this. You can never use culinary water for secondary, but we'll enter into this agreement all day long because the code requires us to. So the changes that we're recommending are to first change the word shall to may, and that gives the council an opportunity to enter into a deferral agreement if they wanted to do this, and then state some items of deferral agreements may require secondary water system improvements to be completed within a specified time period, bonding or escrow for future improvements, require minimal turf grass areas and xeriscape provisions, deed restrict for individual properties to include plat notes limiting gallons of water used per property, or other necessary provisions to protect the city's culinary water resources. And this is not a comprehensive list, but it gives some context and framework around what that deferral agreement might look like. The question for the Planning Commission, and I realize this is kind of a technical one, is did we miss anything that we really should be considering in looking at minor amounts of culinary water used for irrigation purposes, if that's something the city wants to go for? And I would ask John as well, in my kind of writing this out, did we miss any key components that a deferral agreement might want to consider?
Scott, I have a question.
Yes.
When we're changing the shall to may, it only relates to the deferral agreement.
Yep.
The requirement still exists that they have to provide secondary water.
Yep.
And the deferral agreement will be sort of details on how they provide it, when they provide it, things like that. So we're not changing the requirement for secondary water. It's just related to the deferral agreement. Okay.
Correct. And there are two places that we collect the assurance of secondary water. And the first is at the time of subdivision, a developer is required to give us what we call a will serve letter from the secondary water provider that says, yes, we can and will serve this utility to the piece of ground. And in the past, we would accept conditional will serve letters that would say, we'll gladly give you secondary water if you, and then it would have a series of conditions. If you bring us water shares, if you have physical water, if you connect. And we've run into situations now where conditional will serves have been granted and we've moved forward with the subdivision process. And then it turns out there's an inability for that secondary water to be provided back to the company and kind of has set people up incorrectly. So we're no longer accepting conditional will serves. They must say, yes, you've provided us with the water. Yes, we can physically serve it. It's more assurance. And then the second place is at the time of building permit. So you pay, if you come in for a building permit in North Ogden, we have the yellow, is it the yellow paper? Or am I thinking budget? As part of the building permit, I think there's a yellow sheet, and that is the receipt that you have paid the water connection bill at your secondary water provider. And that is required as part of your building permit. So we pick it up on the front end of subdivision and the back end of building permits. You essentially can't build in North Ogden without some sort of secondary water for irrigation purposes. Mr. Gardner.
Another comment, I'm concerned about deferring secondary water just because when the infrastructure gets installed, the streets, sewer, water, we've paved over those streets. And now if that water pipe was never put in, it's much more costly to get put in and it interrupts all those people living there. Should some consideration be maybe that they install a dry line?
Yep.
And maybe just don't have that connection?
Well, so one of the ideas we thought is instead of it being a dry line, actually have it be used for secondary so that if they split it, if they are going to use culinary, that we connect the secondary system to the culinary in the subdivision. So not to Pine View. And then the deferral agreement would allow for the right amount of money so that when the secondary water becomes available, they then disconnect from the culinary and connect that pipe to the secondary. And then we'd have some sort of a master meter at that location. So that this sounds terrible, I know, but we would force them to have an HOA and force the HOA to enforce the secondary water restrictions, the use of culinary as outdoor irrigation. And that master meter, once it hit a certain number in the summer, we would go up there and we would lock it down.
Yeah.
And so all of the individuals in that subdivision would have to be sharing the resource together and policing it together, because we don't have the resources to go and police 300 homes on the hillside that are using culinary water. But that would allow it to be used and not be torn up, have the road torn up later.
One consideration when using culinary water on secondary is contamination to our culinary system and having proper backflows and those type of things. So we're not bringing contaminants into our system. So that would definitely have to be part of the plan.
Yeah, with the master valve too, that's gonna be a
Yeah.
lot easier than for an individual.
Yeah, those are great ideas. And in fact, those are some things that we could include in this language saying, deferred agreements may require things to be completed, but should at minimum consider these things. And so you could suggest a list of this and this and this. Even these things that Scott has in here, we could just say must consider the following, and then we just make them bullet points.
Where does xeriscaping fit in here?
So there's two things. There's there, I'm gonna say it wrong. One has an A in it, one has an O in it. So there's Zero and Xeriscape. One uses a little bit of water, but it's to establish it and native plants, and just in an extreme drought, you can keep it alive. The trouble with Zero is it's rock gardens and not generally favorably seen by planners as a viable option because it doesn't help cool the area. It just turns into a heat sink.
I think
Or
they
not a
end up
heat sink, but
using-
a,
I think they end up using more water when you have nothing to provide any shade
Hmm.
than something that uses, minimal drip. I mean, not turf grass, that eats up a lot of water,
Yeah.
but when you have some shade infrastructure, it reduces the amount of evaporation that you have.
Yeah. So we're not hot on that. On either one of those options.
well, the Zera with the A allows for plants and stuff to come in, and that's if they're going to use secondary water, that would be a good use, much better than someone hosing down their artificial turf to cool it down so the kids can play on it.
So I assume that culinary water, these residents would pay the same rate per gallon of use that everybody else in the city uses. But I feel like on some of our previous discussions, these areas where secondary water is not currently available, that to make it available or buy shares, it would be at a significantly higher cost to the homeowner.
It depends on how that's passed along. So ultimately, I'll just say the homeowner, because
Yeah.
a developer, a property owner sells a piece of ground and they either sell it with or without their water right. It depends on whether they own it. And land use or land rights are a bundle of sticks. So they may or may not own a water right. And then water rights within water sheds are transferable. So somebody can sell the water off of their land or excess water that they aren't using on the open market. And that all ends up being the total cost of the piece of ground in order to develop, which ultimately gets passed on to the home buyer at the lot cost as it's
Yeah.
divided out. So there, you can either do that upfront and then just divide it evenly across as a developer, or in some cases, they might charge each lot owner what the cost or share for their water share is, and it happens both directions. Ultimately, the developer or the property owner pays for it.
Yeah, I think my concern is, and it has been since we first talked about this, is we're looking long-term, 10 years from now. The people in this community are paying significantly more, but this water is provided not by the city, it's provided by Pine View, or is it Mountain View?
View.
And then a homeowner comes in 10 years from now and says, well, I don't think it's fair legally that I'm paying 10 times more for my sprinkler water than everybody else in the city. And they may have a good legal argument to say, well, now we want it should be spread equally among all the residents in the city. And they would have a good argument for that. And it'd be like, well, why am I paying it? Well, because 10 years ago, 10 people who sat on some panel decided it was okay to build this when they knew that their secondary water was 10 times as much to provide. So that would be my only concern. But I don't know how you would do anything to ensure that
Well, I don't
doesn't happen.
know that the Pine View costs, the metered costs, would ever necessarily fluctuate. I think this is more the upfront cost to get water to a property, to get it.
Is it just the upfront one-time kind of installation cost? Then once it's there, the infrastructure is there, it's
Nor do I
pretty
think
much the same.
city, because it's secondary water and we don't own secondary water in our city.
Right.
Would have any jurisdiction over the ability to dictate differences in cost. If Pineview Water down the road decided to charge more or less, the city of North Ogden would, have no
Yeah.
jurisdiction on that.
Absolutely. And that's what I'm saying, but
Yeah.
I don't know if that's something that would even matter at this point. I think if it's a one-time installation
I
cost,
think
then
an
it's
interesting thought.
probably not even an issue. So,
But I think, I like what you're
Thanks.
saying, thinking in the future. And the water is going to become more scarce, I would suspect.
Will you make sure you talk close to the
I
microphone?
would think in the future, as water becomes more scarce, it's going to be interesting, the routes that we have to take on building homes. I mean, is it secondary water? I mean, does that ever just stop? I don't know.
I don't know. And I've had this question, and this is an interesting legal thought to me is irrigation water a primary requirement to live in a home? And I think that's some city, and I won't say it's North Ogden, but someone's going to get sued over this, and the state will have to weigh in on whether or not it is legal to require secondary irrigation water at the time of certificate of occupancy for a home. And up till now, it's been almost a non-issue. I mean, we have had abundant water, or there's been a perception of water. We know now from the water engineer that we have more paper water out there than physical water. And those water rights happen, from the oldest to the youngest, and the youngest water rights, or the most recent water rights, are the ones that can't be fulfilled first, right? And that's many of the new developments that we have on the hill are new water. So I'm kind of waiting for this to happen, and we're not the only community bumping up against this. There's several along the Wasatch Front. And then you have communities down south in Washington County that have really strongly addressed water-wise landscaping, but they also have a very different plant species that will grow without water. So you can do a really nice landscape of cactus and low water-wise plants. And here it's, thistle grows really well, and Dyer's Woad grows really well without water, and wide variety of golden hay colored grasses. But we don't really have the same, it takes water to get something established. And after that point, you can typically slow that watering down. It's just a lot harder for us up here. But the thing about the current code amendment is that the code right now requires secondary water, and it requires the city to enter into a deferral agreement if secondary water is not available. So we already have it on the books. At this point, it's how do we modify it so that we protect ourselves, the council can protect the citizens, and is this a beneficial amendment or change for the city?
Okay, cool. I know we kind of deviated there, but it was an interesting discussion.
That's being a public hearing would be.
Yeah, did you have a question before you open a public
have-
hearing?
Well, I can ask it after too.
Okay, I'm sure we'll have more discussion then. All right, let's go ahead and open a public hearing at this time. And I'm not sure we have an applicant. It's pretty much the city at this point. So are there any public comments on this for anybody that's present or online?
We do have one online.
Okay.
Philip Swanson.
Mr. Swanson, how are you tonight?
I'm well. How are you all?
Good, thank you. Do you have any thoughts or comments on this?
I do. I'll preface what I'm going to say in that I'm personally opposed to culinary water ever being used as secondary water. That said, I support the change from shall to may. I have a question for John. Can that be changed to shall not instead of may, which would obligate the city not to enter into an agreement?
It could be. Yeah, the council could just say they would not consider culinary use outside full stop.
My concern is, as has been mentioned, long term, that I don't want to open Pandora's box here or the proverbial camel's nose under the edge of the tent. I think if we start now, and understanding that there have been a couple of very limited instances in the past, but if we make it more of a general practice that we're going to significantly impact our culinary water supply down the road. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments?
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Well, second.
We have a motion to close the public hearing from Commissioner Green and a second from Commissioner Gardner. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. So let's continue our discussion on this item. I mean, Mr. Swanson brings up a good point.
Yeah, and his point's kind of aligned with just my concern, when we talk about, may require, blah, 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 to be completed within a specified time period. One of my questions was if we could limit that or consider limiting it. I don't know. I'm kind of right with him. I think using culinary water for outside purposes is incredibly concerning. And as the builds continue and we increase the use of these deferential agreements, I don't know, it seems like a concerning place to live in. So, but that being said, the text amendment seems somewhat positive. But that was my question. And that's just, again, my thoughts are I dislike the specified time period and I dislike kind of the may require on some of these things. I do like what you were saying earlier about, let's lay some of the pipes, et cetera. I think having we need these things in this agreement would be a really good way to go. So if anyone wants to add on any items there or.
My in-laws live in Mapleton and there's no secondary water in the whole town. Everyone has lawns and
Mhm.
it's not unheard of. It's less common to have secondary water than it is to not have it.
You're right.
And water is water, treated or untreated.
That being said, I understand the whole situation. There's a lot of verbiage we could discuss, but I also wonder if there isn't a topic of discussion on limitations of landscaping
Mhm.
types.
That's kind of where I was going.
If it was all on a drip system, that's a pill I can swallow, and I don't think that's a Pandora's box.
Yeah.
If it was dry scaped, drip system, your bushes, your tomatoes, but if just because someone's got the money, can afford the water, it's treated water, it puts stress on the system
Mhm.
for a lawn, I think, again, back to the folks in Mapleton, I do look at everyone's lawn and go, wow, you're using the city's, culinary water system to do this. And, so not that we need to, but I do think that, from a tertiary standpoint, shall not, may not, whatever verbiage we're using, maybe there's an addendum as well that discusses what it can be used for. If you don't have secondary water, then you don't have a lawn.
Yeah.
Get some
You
turf.
you go with a different type of landscape, right? Yeah.
Ogden City has probably half or more of their city that doesn't use secondary.
Yeah, they
use
don't-
Culinary too.
Isn't that shocking? They don't have secondary water, Ogden City.
They have,
Blown away. I mean, I was like,
they have Pine View for a portion and Weber Basin for a portion, and the rest is all
Yeah,
culinary.
culinary.
If you think about it, what's the really big difference between secondary water and culinary water?
treatment.
In North Ogden, it's spring water. That's great. But in many, many cities, it's the exact same water that goes through a treatment plant that filters it out. It's still water.
Yeah.
And one of the few, we don't have some of the same attributes in North Ogden that other cities have. We have different attributes. We have these wonderful mountains, but it limits the economic viability of certain things that we have. But it's beautiful. We love it here, but you don't have roads that go all the way through. But one thing we do have is we've got some huge sponges that are up on the hill that have a lot of water in them, a lot of water. And that's governed by the state. But I think that metering the water that we have and measuring what it is never going to serve us wrong in North Ogden. One, we have it available and it's a nice attribute for our city. And yes, the state's going to try to take it away and spread it out to everybody else. That's going to be the fight. But knowing what we're using and what we're using it for, I think will help us make good decisions. Because you're right,
And-
turf grass takes a lot of water.
and I
Drip
think
irrigation doesn't take very much.
Oh, sorry. And I think you bring up the nuance of my comment of, it's not uncommon to not have secondary water. But, they're treating a river, they're treating a lake. I do think, back to the Pandora's box, it would be a shame if we pumped our wells and springs dry for someone's lawn. So
Yeah.
again, people need a place to live, people need a garden, you know, it's nice to have a couple plants and bushes, but a drip system, you know, is dramatically more efficient. And I'm not really keen on the restriction, and I'm not really keen on the opening up the springs for.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So if they can't guarantee it, should there be an option for them to do alternative landscaping? Because we're talking about instances where we can't
this would-
guarantee.
This text amendment here in red would say that it may require them to do alternative landscaping
Yeah.
such as minimal turf grass, xeriscape. So one of the suggestions I think we're kind of making is that perhaps it's not may but shall in that particular
Mm.
paragraph.
Yeah.
I think the legal definition of shall, changing it to may, is actually really important.
Yeah, not the, yeah, agreed. Not
Not
the
that part.
Okay.
differential agreement, sorry, deferral agreement, but the, let's see, we're in the red on
Yeah.
point 2. I don't know. if
Yep,
John-
and may, and you say shall. I mean, I don't think we want to require the city to do it. I think it's nice to give the city an out if they don't want to do it.
You could
would-
put shall consider.
That's true. And really though, the, am I mistaken here? I believe what we're requiring would be the individual seeking the water would have these additional requirements, not so much the city.
In the deferral agreement.
Correct. It would, but the city, if we put, you know, shall consider, the city has to consider. That doesn't mean city council though could go, you're fine. You can go ahead and have this agreement
So
without
ju-
any of these
just a Point
requirements.
of clarification, in this proposed new language where the red section is on, I'm not sure what page this is, but
I know I'm struggling to identify.
where it has where what the current code says, and then it's the potential ordinance. The first paragraph, the deferral agreement, instead of shall, it's may. I think we all agree on that. So a deferral agreement may be entered into, that gives the city flexibility. But in the second paragraph, when it addresses specifically a deferral agreements may require secondary system improvements to be required in a specific period of time. Minimal turf grass areas and xeriscape provisions, deed restrictions for indoor. Maybe this is where deferral agreements shall consider or shall require secondary water improvements, including xeriscapes.
If it's a deferral agreement, I mean, I guess what's the argument for not requiring, not necessarily this entire list, but what would be the argument not to require minimal turf grass if they're using culinary water? I mean, it
Yeah.
seems like that's a no-brainer, but, and our snowfall has been abysmal this year.
And it would be in the deferral agreement. So once that deferral has been completed
Right.
and the infrastructure's there, then
There.
then it's no longer required.
What's the process of the deferral agreement? Is it just a negotiation with the city? Is it kind of like a conditional use type thing?
Yep.
So we're not saying don't bring your ideas to the city, but we're also, with this verbiage, we're saying we still might just make you require secondary water.
Yeah.
You may check every box and we just can't get to a water agreement.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
I mean, I think I took us off in the boonies a little bit. A lot of the verbiage is there. So, you know, I guess back to the point is the commission and based on Mr. Swanson's comments, are we okay with cracking open the allowed process of a discussion for new developments to
Or
enter in a deferred
yeah,
agreement if they can't get secondary water?
Yeah, I think that's what this
know, it-
ordinance would now say
know,
that's required. Yeah.
It's a Pandora's box, but it's not,
Yeah.
it's not a million unknowns.
I mean, I like your thoughts about, hey, if it's deferred, they don't have secondary water, they're using culinary initially. They have a certain period of time. It's talking about, bonding or escrow for future improvement would be included in this agreement. And then what I like that you said is it talks about, I mean, I don't even want to say minimal turf grass areas or xeriscape. I mean, and we might even go so far as to say drip system only or something like.
well, but isn't it also saying, and maybe I'm not understanding this right, that it gives the city the authority, strength and authority to say, you can't build on this land if you
Correct.
don't have some
You don't-
secondary water. And I think that's what we want is we want strong language for the city to say, you got 10 acres here, you can't put 50 houses on it.
Right.
You know,
There's no secondary water.
there's no secondary water. You know, or maybe I'm
I
misunderstanding
think
the thrust of it.
already allows for this process, correct? This is already an ongoing process in the city.
So,
Hear it?
I mean, it technically does. What it would, if someone came in and said, I cannot physically connect a pipe to Pine View or Mountain View, then they, under the current language, could force the city to say, you have to create some sort of a deferral agreement for us. And I think it would be hard to say we're going to create a deferral agreement that says we won't provide you water, because why would we allow for it? But so that's the one component. I think everyone's on the same page. But I think you could say, in the scenario where a deferral agreement is being considered, here's the things we want the council to consider. And in theory, you could say, hey, you feel like this should be like any other land use law type approach, where it needs to come for a public hearing with the planning commission as a recommendation to the council. And so that's all some language we could include in this.
Because then back to
Ordinance
the initial comment that Nicole made was, if someone wants to build on the land and they say, you know what, we're going to pay for all the infrastructure, if it's actually even physically possible to get secondary water there to allow us to build on the land, then that's different. It's a different scenario.
And they could come with a project
Is,
That has
that
no
could
water
not-
need.
That could not need a secondary
Yeah,
water requirement.
Totally.
so does the city confirm that they're bonding or have the escrow for the future
Yeah,
improvements?
we
So
would.
somehow they put it in an escrow that's controlled by, or we observe, or tell me where the escrow or the bonding, how do we ensure that they're able to do that?
So if the deferral agreement was short enough, we would force them to either post a bond or cash. The hard part is if the deferral agreement is something like, when water's available, you will connect. If that's 30 years out, we're not going to hold that money.
Yeah.
Because I mean, the cost won't cover it. And so it'd be better to, and this is not ideal either, is to put the restriction on the lots and say, when it's available, you will pay for it. But how many of you read that full packet of papers when you signed your documents, when you bought your house?
So what would be a specified time period? What are we thinking is a?
Well, so the way I'm kind of doing this now is I'm saying that the council and, should consider that they have to be completed in a certain time frame, but it doesn't mean that necessarily you would say they have to be completed in 3 years. It would just say the council needs to ask the question and answer it in the process of writing a deferral agreement.
On a case by case
Oh,
basis.
that's so.
And-
leave it
And
alone.
it may vary on when secondary water might reasonably be available.
And to Chad's point, someone might get creative and come forward with a project that is.
The project that
I
doesn't.
guess I do want to share a snippet of into my professional life. I'm working on a project where there's no landscape requirement. It's being zero-scaped. And the project is being held up by that jurisdiction's planning department because there's no secondary water.
Hmm.
So it's the other edge of the sword here. There is no proposed landscaping. There is no proposed use for secondary water. And now there's a struggle on how to approve it. So they can't move forward without a secondary water connection that they're not going to connect
Yeah.
to, because the other part of the ordinance doesn't require live landscaping.
Yeah.
So are they gonna use secondary water for their landscaping?
They're not
Or-
doing it.
I mean, culinary water?
There's no,
They're just
There's no
just
landscape.
gravel
Oh,
beds
rock.
and,
Oh, okay.
and boulders and it actually looks pretty good, to be honest. I was a little surprised when that was the proposal, but now that that's part of the ordinance that they're not required to landscape, they're getting held up at the very end of the line because they don't have secondary water that they're not going to use.
Well, and if you look at the northeast part of our city, and you think about different developments around the state, Promontory, for example, in Park City. Not that we're going to have lots and spaces that are that big, but if someone would rather do construction that's a little more expensive, it's not like you have to clear everything out of the way. You can go in there and make a little road and do a little pad and leave some of the stuff that's already growing naturally around that. And it's a little more work to do that, but then you're not having to landscape, you have natural stuff and
And there could be a developer that could come in with a proposal.
So, to move the discussion forward, I don't know if I have any problem with the verbiage to, what was the verbiage again? Sorry.
It's John has rebulleted it here. So this is the
It's-
language in red that he's
Yeah,
gone back through.
It's here on the screen, Chad. I don't know.
yeah, and I can see it over there. So I just didn't know if that was the exact verbiage. So, I mean, really the only thing, and I don't know if we have the ability to impose it, I guess I'm gonna go back to my original comment and if we're gonna put the verbiage in there and change the shall to may, I might want to say
Think it should.
a removal of a non-allowance of turf grass, not even minimal, just,
Yeah.
hey, it's
Yeah.
we're
No
stewards
turf
here.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem reasonable. And let's go from there,
So in other words, on these points here, everything would remain the same, except we want it where it says may require the city to consider. We want it to be shall because they want to consider these things.
Yeah, so if it shall, then basically you'd have to go through each bullet point,
Yeah, but
prove that you had considered.
Don, how can we slickly write this though that would but that it's not a consideration, but a requirement to have potentially zero turf grass specifically?
Well, he says prohibit, he changed. it
Oh,
to
you gotta prohibit
prohibition
it.
of
Okay,
turf
I-
grass.
yeah,
Yeah, he
okay.
changed it while we were talking.
There's some
pretty
kids here.
strong word.
I need one of those screens and.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And,
That's exactly what
and
he was like summarizing.
if I were to get a little more nitpicky, I like the prohibit, the incorporation of xeriscape principles and possibly the inclusion of drought tolerant plants.
Okay.
I don't know if I wanted
I
to
love it.
create a Phoenix, Arizona either,
It does echo our water-wise plan, which is nice.
Yeah.
So
So John, if they don't,
I also don't know which part is our job.
so John, if they don't meet the time period, then these other things kick in.
So it's, so the way it's written right now, it basically just says, in the event you're creating an agreement, you would need to consider these 4 bullet points, because this is kind of a catch-all, other necessary. And in that agreement, it'd say the council has considered a timeline for it to be considered that is found to be, 3 years or unfeasible,
Yeah.
right? And so they would just have to answer each one as yes, no, this is accomplishable. And in theory, they could go through each of these things and say no, and then say, we're just going to let them use culinary water, no restrictions. So it's not tying their hands completely, but it forces them to go through the exercise of thinking about how they can do this the right way. And the reality is, in Utah, this is the direction every jurisdiction's heading to. There's actually a state statute that's probably going to be pushed this year that's going to force cities to create a water wise landscaping ordinance that might not be mandatory, but will be heavily incentivized.
Two things that were mentioned that I don't know where they fit in here, maybe on that last bullet, but like a dual pipe metering system and an HOA requirement. I know you mentioned that and
Those were good ideas.
those were excellent ideas, but the thing is we all understand what that means right here and now, but if it's different people 5 years from now, and
Mhm.
that may not be something that's.
It's a good discussion.
And the
Separate irrigation mainline system with master meter and possible surcharge.
Yeah.
So
John?
it's still culinary water, but we're charging you more to go put it in the,
Right, yeah.
in the ground. Am I getting too far off?
No.
I just want to
think it's
highlight,
Important, we're talking about it. I think it's important. Let's capture it, right?
and I redid my sprinklers this last summer, and I kind of got off on the boonies with ChatGPT about how many gallons is being dumped on
Yeah.
my lawn.
Yeah.
And I'm not even, I don't even know if I would feel good saying it on record what the math was. But what was interesting is in my park strip and in my yard, I couldn't afford trees when I moved in, so I've added some trees. And they do, because the irrigation system is in, that they don't get water from like the sprinklers.
Yeah.
And these new trees, I mean, they were not cheap. And I was able, it was in the thousands of gallons
Wow.
per week for the lawn. And I was able to keep my trees from dying that I planted in the middle of summer 10 gallons per tree per week. And I think it might have been overboard. So does that make sense? Like,
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't want to create
It's
and I'm not a,
City, 'cause
I'm not a scientist on this. I'm just giving just real world examples. So I do think a drip system, not limiting trees, doesn't create a devoid landscape. But I do think just based on the discrepancy of
These separate.
sod
irrigation.
turf versus other plants, I was blown away at the math. And I was
How
also
much
blown
water?
away at the size of the pipe for my drips. And it was when it was thousands of gallons per week on a sprinkler system, my drip system, and these are rough calculations, was in the low hundreds. And then the trees, all of my trees were maybe 60 gallons a week,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
it's.
which is the bathtub.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to capture before we lose it, somewhere to talk about preventing contamination, contamination
That's
if
the
they're
backflow
using,
Preventers, the backflow
Yep.
preventers.
you see that?
Okay.
Okay, got it.
I typed it in while you were discussing something else.
You're in my mind.
Good.
Commissioner Gardner's thought.
You know, and I think something like this is responsible because, you know,
It's
it
related
doesn't
to,
remove the resource for pools. It doesn't remove plants or trees. But it does open the discussion for limitations. And I think it blankets the sod turf with which, hey, I love grass. I love to go out and play on my grass. I'm torn between the responsibility of it. But when it comes to actual spring water, I think I would feel good even with my core beliefs on you shouldn't limit someone's private property, that's a shared resource.
Yeah, for sure. And it's not unlimited.
Correct.
John, I have a related concern question.
Okay.
When the way that the water is paid for, currently Pineview, the majority of us are in the Pineview service area. We get, as part of our annual property tax, we get charged for our water system. Now, that doesn't mean we have to use the water, but we get charged for it. What about those people now that they're going to develop a subdivision? They don't have Pineview available, although they're in the service area of Pineview. Are they going to be charged twice? Once by us for culinary water and once by Pineview for their annual assessment?
Pineview only charges them is when they've connected to the system. So if you have a vacant lot that's in Pineview, they don't do an assessment against
Well,
you.
They may not do the full assessment, but if you look on your tax bill, there are Pineview charges on there.
Oh, I wasn't aware of that.
But
But it's
it
probably
was
because-
just while they're in that 1, 2, 3 year period, they may be feeling double taxed.
Well, then they should probably go to the county and say, look at my tax. you know,
And the
my tax
county
bill."
says, say, we're just collecting it because that's what Pineview tells us.
Yeah,
Or we're doing that because
Yeah.
the sewer district tells us.
yeah. But I don't know, that'd be a city responsibility to.
No, but it's something to consider that we will get complaints from future residents.
Yeah.
If that's the case, that I wouldn't want them to feel like they're burdened
Yeah.
with double taxation.
Yeah, that's thoughtful.
Good thing for
No,
someone to work out.
If
Um,
you get connected is when it gets on the tax rolls.
That's the way I thought it was. I mean,
Yeah, I
it would
think
make sense if your property was annexed in, that they may charge you a baseline. But maybe that's after if you're annexed in and subdivided, but you haven't built yet.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Yeah.
It's an interesting question.
Yeah.
So, John, if we wanted to make a motion on this item, could we reference just the doc you've typed here? Because we're,
Yeah.
right, with that,
And we'll make sure that this document is the one that's forwarded to the council. For
what would the
recommendation.
what proper phrasing would we use to reference said doc? Exhibit A.
Sure.
Okay.
John, how you feeling about this discussion? Are we missing something? Are we being too sensitive, you think?
No, I'm really glad that John took notes on the
That was
screen
a
so that we
thing.
can all see them. That's very helpful and he'll forward those down to me and I'll make sure they're in the city council packet.
Okay.
I think that's a good discussion. The only fear that we have, and this is, the code already allows it again, as I'd said, but is that once you open the door once to one developer for this, we will be consistent in the future with how we review them. So having the standards really clear up front for why we would or wouldn't do this is extremely helpful for us in the future to make sure that we're not just opening the door. And our current culinary water or engineering study on culinary water shows our culinary sources are really solid through build out of about 40,000 people. And when those new tanks, which are capital projects and capital expenditures are necessary over time, if we start to permit culinary water as secondary sources, it'll either move up those capital facilities, earlier, which may, force a number of things. It could be bonding, it could be increased taxes, increased water prices, and just kind of some less assurance for us than what we think right now with the metered out growth.
Do we, in any of our ordinances, do we have issues related to water reuse that could be used toward irrigation?
No.
Those are
Water,
some
you're
concerns
talking Gray
that
water or something like that?
gray water, direct reuse eventually, but
I think,
There
I,
was,
I feel like the state passed a code that says cities can't prohibit the use of gray water.
but I mean, that's one way to extend our water and use it on
Mhm.
irrigation or plant life,
Sure.
versus
And
drink.
those of you who aren't aware that basically your house would have two plumbing systems, one that came from your shower and one that came from your toilet, and they'd go to different, well, one would go to the central weaver, the other would go to a tank and you'd pump it out into your lawn when it was time to sprinkle. Yeah.
If you're a fan of Dune, it's like a big still suit.
Yeah.
Okay, so to try to move us along, and again, if we don't want to second it, that's fine too, but I move that we forward a recommendation to city council that we amend the North Ogden Code 11-26-8 as recommended by Exhibit A.
I'll second that.
okay, we have a motion and a second. Motion by Commissioner Green, second by Commissioner Neighbor. Let's go ahead and take a vote. And this is for recommendation to the city council. Commissioner Bailey,
Yes.
Commissioner Gardner,
Yes.
Commissioner Green.
Yes.
I say yes. Commissioner Neighbor
Yes.
and Commissioner Webb.
Yes.
Okay. So we've got a unanimous vote on that.
Good discussion.
That was great.
Yeah.
Just one, I guess, last closing question is, in our city currently, is there just one particular area mainly up on the hillside that is where secondary water would sort of be unavailable? Or are there other parts of the
There's some
city that?
commercial downtown.
There's lots of places that could potentially, if let's say the state engineer steps in and says the basin is over allocated, there are no water rights available. That may lead to a position of unavailability, but right now, what we're at is that there's water there. The pipes can be connected. The issue is people don't want to sell their water rights. And that's a different situation than there isn't zero water available.
People meaning Pineview Water and.
At Pine View, the canals, the farmers who are holding it. I mean, I haven't looked at the numbers, but if you had bought water shares, well, there was a lawsuit over it about 8 years ago. A developer sued Tooele because they promised they would deliver them water when they came to do it. Instead of buying the water, they waited, and then when the development came in, water shot up by 10 times, and so the city torpedoed the development and lost the lawsuit. And it was all because water got too expensive, too quick, just 10 times.
And just some people buy land and transfer those water rights out and leave it with no water rights.
Mhm.
And then land becomes scarce and they try to sell it, and then people are now looking for water sites to get water there. And then just one more question, just for interest, is there a penalty in the city of North Ogden for using culinary water for landscaping?
Our water rates rise with use, so sort of, but we don't have any, as far as I know, it's just secondary water is required. If the police or code enforcement were to go out and you've got a hose stuck to your house tap that's watering your grass, I think we would probably call foul on that and ask them to stop doing it, but it's mostly metered through your water meter and the charges increase dramatically with use. And what we saw through the drought is that there were homeowners who were willing to use culinary water on secondary or on irrigation to keep it alive and pay those exorbitant water prices. But there are some property owners up the hill who have landscaping that's probably worth what my house is worth, where I live in West Kaysville. So it's kind of a matter of what they value and what they want to keep alive, and for the city, what our values are and what we want to do with our water and how we want to use it. Any of these changes, I think maintaining it as a homeowners association is critical because we don't have the staffing to be the landscape police that goes out and makes sure that a subdivision wasn't approved or a building permit wasn't approved with a certain percentage of xeriscaping or limited landscaping. And then 2 years later, they put grass in. We just don't have the staffing resources to drive around and monitor that.
All right, well, let's move along to the next item. This is going to be a public meeting, not a public hearing, because the public hearing was held on November 5th on this topic, which is consideration and action on a legislative amendment of North Ogden Code 1110 Alpha-2, permitted uses in commercial zones to consider regulations for massage establishments, as well as NOC, North Ogden Code 11-7, definitions to update the definition of massage establishments. And the presenter tonight is also Mr. Hess.
Thank you, Chair. So we did hold a public hearing. You can choose to hold public comments if you'd like to, but there's no formal requirement to. This item was posted and put on an agenda that was extremely busy with other public hearings for rezones and an annexation consideration. So we essentially quickly forwarded it. In October of 2025, the City Council passed an ordinance enacting a temporary land use regulation. That's it's a new word for what used to be called moratoriums on new massage establishments as users or business licenses approved in commercial zones. And those are limited to 6 months. So we have a limited time frame to consider this and consider changing any ordinances before that temporary land use restriction would end and we'd have to accept any business licenses. And we did have activity at a local business that we knew was contrary to the business license based on investigation of that business. So we just are looking at ways to protect the city. In this case, the state code does require all massage professionals to be licensed, and the business license owner was able to provide that at the time of. But we have a few other items that we'd like to help establish, massage and spa establishments that are legitimate from those that might be fronts for other businesses that we're more concerned about. So we added two 11.7 definitions. I think the staff report has it incorrect as 11.17. I apologize. But at the end of the massage establishment definition would add all massage therapists performing work must be trained and licensed in accordance with state code and meet requirements outlined in 1110A, North Ogden Code 1110A2. So that's sort of belt and suspenders for us as we accept business licenses, that we will require all of those licenses to be shown. And then in the permitted uses in commercial zones, 1110A2, in massage establishments, they currently are all of the ends as shown to the permitted. That's the temporary land use regulation creating that moratorium on massage licenses. So we would reverse that back and make them permitted in both the downtown area and Southtown area, and add that massage therapists must be licensed as identified in Utah State Code. Products used in massage, esthetician, or other similar services must be made available for sale as part of the business. And business storefronts must have 100% transparent glazing minus approved signage that shall be reviewed and approved at the time of the business license. So one of the things we've noticed is some of these establishments that are operating in, contrary to their business license typically have their front windows completely blacked out. There's no general kind of front receiving area. There's no, it's clearly not a spa or other like bodywork type of operation. So if the planning commission can think of any other items that would legitimize this, we've gone out and looked at other city codes and feel like these are at least reasonable considerations that might stop some of those businesses from coming in and make sure that they're all legitimate uses.
Yeah. It's interesting that massage therapists do not charge sales tax on their services, and that's interesting.
It is, yeah. So service-based charges in Utah are an interesting one. So if you go work on get car done or car work done, that's a taxable service, but some professional services aren't liable for sales tax. So as far as I know, massage therapy is not one that's
I
related
like
to.
the
sales
idea of
tax.
requiring the taxable product.
Yeah.
So when I looked at that, I like that because that's going to generate sales tax and make it more legitimate. Is there any way, I mean, what if they have one bottle of lotion they're selling? Is there any way, and I'm just commenting here, is there any way to say a quarter of their business needs to be taxable sales to make that more legitimate?
I'm just trying to think of the devil's advocate side of things, is that you can provide as many goods for purchase as you want, and it's up to the community or whoever your proprietors to come and purchase those goods. So I guess you could require maybe a percentage of the sales floor area to be dedicated to it, or
See,
something, but
okay.
that's kind of a hard one for me to think about. How would we
The
administer?
allocation of sales floor, that is a good strategy on that.
And I don't know what the right percentage would be.
Products would they sell? though?
Yeah.
Well, it talks about it right here. Well, I guess it's products used in massage, anesthetician, blah, blah. But I mean, they could sell lotion. I mean,
Lotion, bath
lotion
salts.
and other stuff.
But the thrust of this is to make sure that it's a legitimate massage business, right?
Yeah.
And that if upon investigation, it happens to not be a massage business or an extra massage business, that could be enforced.
Yes.
I think my only concern about like really going down the requirement of a percentage of sales
Yeah,
tax and
yeah.
stuff is there are many other businesses on this list that we wouldn't really require that, for them.
So maybe,
Those other businesses
but I
are
think there's
usually
I-
fronting is.
Well,
there's a sensitivity.
I mean, the idea is
No
that we
problem.
want this, never mind, let's move.
A little bit.
Well, I like,
It's a distinctly
but
different situation.
it's interesting that you threw that on there. Is that because some of the other cities have that element?
It just, I mean, I guess every spot that I've gone to, my wife is a licensed massage therapist. They all have, body wraps or salt soaks or bath soaks or
Yeah,
other items that are for sale and that are promoted by the company. And that can be massage oils, lotions,
Yeah.
face products. So it just is a way to separate service only oriented businesses from a legitimate spa.
Yeah.
And I don't want to take away from somebody who's providing small, they're one massage therapist, they're one esthetician taking up a small area and burden them with requiring them to carry hundreds of dollars of stuff that may not be sold, right? So it's kind of a balance there. But I think to Johnson's point or Commissioner Webb's point, that some of these standards are there for the back end policing of businesses that we're concerned whether or not they're legitimate. So you have codes in place, and then if you have to go and inspect it, you lean on the code to say, these are the reasons that you're not a legitimate business and we're concerned about.
Well, they could have product that they don't make one sell.
Exactly. Yeah.
I don't know.
Has law enforcement weighed in on things that would help them on this at all?
No, I could speak to Chief Heinen.
That might be a good idea.
There is a pretty, there's a large article, when I Googled this later, I was trying to, look into these issues a little bit. There is a large article where it was like a state level, this whole state knows this is a problem, hence the licensing for massage therapists. But they had spoke to law enforcement extensively in Salt Lake. And the licensing requirements that are now in the state code was what law enforcement thought would be most helpful because it gives them more teeth, et cetera. But I can't remember if there were other recommendations from law enforcement, but that's a great question because there was a big article about this problem. It's a good
I
thought.
can see the frontage of the facility, the glazing and the openness. That's clearly a good idea.
Yeah, and law enforcement had called that out distinctly, that's really helpful.
That was there also, yeah.
But I didn't, when I read the article and read any other of the research I could find, there wasn't anything that stood out to me as like lacking from this example you've given us. Like there wasn't anything that's like, oh, we should add that. So it seemed like we covered whatever was the common kind of knowledge regarding this.
Yeah, I think anything that our local law enforcement would say, God, this should sure be helpful for us, we'd probably want to include. If it was, if our city attorney said we can do that.
Would you like us to consult with the police department and bring that back to you, or would you feel comfortable making a recommendation that would include, get a recommendation from the police department prior to going to city council? And that's up to you, however you want to see
Yeah, I
this.
think that's probably, yeah.
Just one other thought, and maybe I'm a little bit, this is interesting topic. Do they have an official sign-in log when they, I just wonder about that.
The hard thing about that is that now you're starting to,
List of shame.
well, and
If you
No.
go to a doctor's office, you have an appointment
Yeah.
and your name's on the log.
yeah, the hard thing though is that it starts forcing, because some people it is health stuff, and so it falls into HIPAA, and I'm not sure the police could have access to it anyways.
And you're not going to be able to get a doctor's office to turn over the list of the people who've signed in.
That just would make it more official, though. I don't know if they need to look at the law.
And like,
Anyway.
like I carry a professional license and I don't know what the title and chapter for massage therapist is, but in my architecture office, my state license needs to be posted.
That's probably not a bad idea.
I don't know if that's already taken care of,
Yeah.
but I am required to have
Great idea.
every jurisdiction that I'm licensed in needs to be,
Yeah.
it
Actually,
it needs,
Yeah, being a
code
CP, I
there.
have get the little
Part of the code.
little log or the little poster too. Yeah,
On the AI.
that's interesting.
Great idea.
so I guess in my mind, legitimate, like massage therapists, like they might be just a portion of a larger business, like a chiropractor's office or a beauty salon or a gym or something like that, right? And so this would apply, they would technically be a massage establishment if they had any sort of massage therapists on staff or?
If they're a separate business license, if they're embedded in the business, we may not know that they're operating. So if we find them and they're embedded in another business, then like a large gym that then provides massage therapy as part of it, we could require them, or maybe we add that they're licensed individually,
Just thought like
separately. Yep.
where I would feasibly see a massage therapy service.
Yeah, but how would you apply that to all these other items?
Yeah, that's what I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the code is very extensive. If you guys haven't had a chance to check it out from the state, like, the requirement, the licensing. I'm not quite, haven't quite got to the section of whether it has to be displayed, but it's probably likely. I mean, it's very extensive as to what they have to do. Because remember, this is new code trying to combat this problem.
Right.
So the nice thing is we're utilizing state code first, right? That's going to make it so they're licensed. So just know that it's nice and beefy.
and what we're trying to theoretically do is say, hey, we did our best. We can't prevent it all.
Yes, correct.
Oldest profession. Still going to be out there.
We're just doing our best to
We're doing our best.
to mitigate
You know,
issues
but
with.
seriously, when these come down, I mean, I think when these things inevitably happen, it is nice to know that was a log of this meeting,
Yeah,
a concern,
yeah,
a discussion,
yeah.
and, you know, awareness.
And some kind of enforcement guideline in code, right?
So I think the nuance is, are we trying?
Mhm. Yeah. And I mean, the code is extensive for it being like a massage therapist, for example, and there's a reason for that. It's what you said. The code's trying on the state level, therefore we follow that and make the glazing happen and some good stuff, but.
I mean, I feel like we've had the discussion portion because it is a public meeting. We're not required to hold a public hearing, but before we move forward, is there anybody present in the meeting today or online who would like to make comment on this item?
John's bracing, wondering what's he gonna say. No. Kevin Burns, I'm from North Ogden. A few months ago, John may be able to give us the date. In this room, there was a presentation held. The chief of police was here, presented, the sheriff, Chief Gwynn, also Representative Gwynn, Representative Wilcox. There might have been some others. And the discussion around the massage establishments was really related to the nastiness of human trafficking that it facilitates. So it's different than maybe what we're thinking we see in the movies, and how these people are being treated and held some form of captivity as part of these parlors. There was one raided here in North Ogden. There's another one down the street. You go to 5 Points, there's a new one popping up. There's there at the time, it seems like the number was 350 statewide that the state was looking at, that fall into that category of suspicious, you know, that we look at. So we may find it humorous, but human trafficking is a pretty serious topic. And that's what we're looking at when we're talking about these massage establishments. So thank you.
Thank you for
Bringing that.
reiterating the seriousness of human trafficking.
So your suggestion to have discussions with the police chief, good idea?
Anything that local law enforcement would say, hey, we can go out and this is going to help us better identify what's happening here is helpful.
Yeah.
You know, the more teeth we can have here, the better.
There was a city who restricted the use of a business license for that location once it was violated, that you could no longer use it for massage. I wasn't sure though, that seems somewhat complicated legally speaking, but that was the city's stance in that article I referenced earlier, was if it's because to the public comments point, often they pop up again later, like it's a different name or a different branding, but it's just popping up again, and often in the same locations, very easily affordable locations. So one city, I was one of them in Salt Lake County, had taken the stance that there would be no more business licenses provided after a violation. Now, for legitimate massage therapists, that seems somewhat, restrictive, but
Yeah, but they're not gonna
random.
get charged. You know, they're not gonna have an issue.
Yeah, but
If-
that did jog my
yeah, I
memory
think
that
if-
that was
if
the
someone's-
one piece that stuck out to me that we didn't have in this language.
Okay.
So that was
Well,
a very good comment.
Yep, actually, that was
That's
humbling
good,
comment
yeah, yeah.
because we were kind of thinking, oh, well, we're trying, but it is actually serious consequences. Okay. So I don't see any other hands up online, and I know we've had a lengthy discussion already, but I'm going to go ahead and make a motion that we recommend to the city council that they adopt the proposed changes in the staff report, and also include any recommendations from the police department, that the staff would include any other additional recommendations from the police department before going to the city council. And also that the therapist licenses be posted in the office as well. Does anybody have any?
I'll second that.
Okay, so we got a motion and a second by Commissioner Webb. Let's go ahead and take a vote. Commissioner Bailey,
Yes.
Commissioner Green,
Yes.
Commissioner Neighbor,
Yes.
Commissioner Gardner,
Yes.
Commissioner Webb,
Yes.
and I vote yes. So that passes with those two changes unanimously. Any other public comments on anything on the agenda tonight or outside of the agenda tonight before we move on? Anybody online, John?
Yeah, I do have JD has a comment.
Mr. Dalpace, are you,
Hey everyone.
Hello.
good evening.
Just wanted to quickly thank Commissioner Nancaro and Commissioner Webb for your service. We appreciate the many years of service that you guys provided in North Ogden City, and I always appreciated listening to your discussions and taking your recommendations as a council.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
You're a gentleman, JD.
Sure. Okay, any other remarks by the planning commissioners? Mr. Hess, any report from community and economic development or planning?
I want to second what Councilmember Dalpass said, that thank you to Commissioner Nancaro, Commissioner Webb, for your service. I've been here for nearly 5 years and I've gotten to work with both of you for that entire time. So thank you very much. You've been wonderful citizen planners with us and I hope you remain engaged. The council will likely make recommendation, or the mayor will make recommendation to the council on the 27th of January for the new planning commission members. We will try to hold that training between then and December, the first meeting in December, but we should have a full planning commission in December is what we're expecting. And then also, just so you're aware, with our current vote, Councilmember Barker, being the mayor, has left an open seat for the council. And then we had Councilmember Severing come off the council. So we have open seat that we are, so we got Tara Carney, who's new, is a new council member, and then we will be holding in public interviews, or not we, the council will be holding in public interviews next week on the 27th for people who have applied for that council seat. So if you're interested in knowing who your new elected leaders will be, I would recommend that you watch that or come to the meeting. And that's all I have.
Mr. Call?
Thank you. And Scott stole my big news, which you already knew about the council seat, but it's state statute requires us to interview in public, which is different than the interviews you all went through for your positions. And if you want to watch, it'll be on YouTube, and or come participate in person. It'll be the third time the city's done this since I've been with them, and it's fascinating. And those of you in the room or otherwise who have put your name forward, good luck. And if you're interested in who those are, if you go to the election page on the Recorder Drive, down at the very bottom under vacancy, I forgot the name of it. It's there. So you can see all the names, see their applications, and get to know a little bit about the individuals who are putting their hats in the ring. So
Are they mayor appointed, did you say, or is it city council?
city council will vote. If there's a tie, because there's 4 council members, then the mayor will split the vote, is what the council decided to do.
Fun process.
Yeah. So if you just go to the election page down at the very bottom, it's called 2026 City Council Vacancy Applications. And there are 8 individuals there who have put their names forward.
That's awesome.
Big group.
That's great.
And there may be 3 of them in the room.
I figured that might be the case. Wait, who's the third besides? Come on, people.
They would need to self-identify.
He's laughing a lot. Is it you?
What's that?
Is it you?
I have thrown my name in.
Good for you. It's cool. I figured these guys. Right.
So all three of them are gluttons for punishment because
So nosy. I'm like, wait, who is it? I have to know this.
All right, everyone. Thanks again for everything, and I'd welcome a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn at my last meeting.
Last one.
Honest.
I'll second.
Okay, so Commissioner Webb made the motion and Commissioner Gardner